welcome to the 4th episode of my knitting video podcast. As usual, I will talk about what I'm wearing first, then talk about any of my finished objects, cast-ons, and then yarn acquisitions. I'm wearing two knits today actually. This is the twist loop top by Other Loops. It's just a ribbed tank top with loopy cable details. My version has been knitted in Knitting for Olive merino in the colour Cloud, so it's like a white-ish cream kind of colour. It's relatively cool toned, it's got a bit of pink in there. I think it looks okay with my skin tone. This design isn't very bra friendly, as you can see here, so I'm wearing it with a cardigan. In the summer I do tend to wear it just by itself. This pattern comes out quite large because the design itself is relatively loose, but I think a lot of people tend to do waist decreases on this design because I think it's just a bit of a nicer fit, and that is exactly what I did. I followed the pattern in terms of the size that I knitted. I just ended up doing some waist decreases similar to the ones in the square neck camisole by Garn Licked. This ended up kind of working out for me because it does have a bit of a nicer fit, but I think I should have sized down to a size small because I knitted a medium, which normally fits my measurements, but in this case it didn't really work out quite as well as I wanted it to. I think if I wanted to knit it again I would definitely size down because I don't get as much wear out of this as I normally would, because I just don't think it looks quite as flattering on me, especially without a cardigan on. It's just a little bit funky, like loose but tight at the same time in a way. The layered piece on top is the April cardigan by Petite Knit. It's a very popular knit. I made mine with a modified button band. I knitted mine with a double knitted edge, and I followed the instructions that Florence Miller put on her Ravelry page of how she kind of modified this button band. I knitted this piece in Drops Flora in the colour White Fog, held with a strand of silk mohair, also by Drops, in the colour Light Beige. I think it's given a really beautiful fabric. It's slightly marled, so I can't really layer it with marled pieces, but I think it's come out really pretty. It's nice and cool toned, slightly greyish, and then I've got these shiny kind of pearly buttons on there as well, which I think look really cute. I've finished this piece relatively recently, but I've worn it so much, so I think this is an absolute staple in my wardrobe. I might knit another one, but I'm not sure yet. I've got quite a cardigan knitting mojo at the moment. I mentioned in my last podcast that after washing this piece I also soaked it in conditioner to soften the mohair and alpaca, because I know that I'm very sensitive to both of those fibres, and it helped massively. It's become a lot softer. It's still not as soft as I would like it to be, and it still gets a little bit itchy. Like now I'm fine, but if it gets a bit warm it does get insanely itchy, like especially on my shoulders. My boyfriend and I were driving back from a training course I had in Crewe, so that's about 3-hour drive. We were in a car with heated seats. I was just getting really toasty, and this cardigan got so insanely itchy that I just wasn't able to wear it, and then my shoulders were like a little bit red from kind of where my skin was irritated from the alpaca, I think. I don't think it's even the mohair, but I think the blocking with the conditioner really helped, and it's definitely a lot softer, so I would really recommend that method. My first finished object is this blouse number 1 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. I cast this on following the needles size specified in the pattern, so 4mm, and then I switched to 5.5mm needles because those were the ones that I met gauge on, but I still wanted a nice fitted tight neckline, which the 4mm needles allowed for. For this project I used Sandnes garn tynn in the colour Blue Hydrangea or Hortensia. It's this really pretty blue colour. It's slightly muted, but I think for my skin tone it comes across as quite bright, so I'm not entirely certain if that was the best decision. I only worn this once since I finished it. Various reasons that I'll talk about in a minute, but I think colour is probably one of the biggest reasons, because the blue looks a little bit funky with my slightly warm toned hair, especially at the bottom. I can't get my hair to look a bit cooler because I've got highlights and they just, unless I tone them, they just come out a little bit yellowy. I think I kind of have to avoid the blue, especially that I wear blue jeans quite a lot and this blue clashes with them, so I can only wear like white or black jeans, and yeah, it's a bit harder to style. The yarn itself is very lustrous and like buttery soft. It's definitely a very different soft than like merino. It's more of a slippery soft, but still not like a silk kind of soft. It's very round when you knit it first, so when you block it, it then becomes like nice and flat and just looks a bit more like a fabric, because before it looked a bit like a net in a way. It kind of fills in the gap after you block it, so that's not really an issue, but I was definitely worried when I started knitting it. Since this is knitted on quite large needles compared to what I usually use, it went by super fast, even though I had to re-knit a whole sleeve, so I think it was a really great knit. I think if I'd chosen a slightly different colour, I'd probably get a lot more wear out of it. I ended up knitting this a little bit more cropped than the pattern suggested because I wanted it to hit my waist just above kind of where my high-waisted jeans are, or just meeting the edge of the jeans, and that's exactly how long it came out. The edge flares out a little bit, or rather like it goes a bit wavy, where I wanted it to like lay nice and flat. It's definitely a drapey fabric, but the bottom edge looks a little bit odd, I think, especially that it kind of rolls as well. I think maybe I should have cast off a little bit tighter, but I was worried it would be kind of cinching in. I think maybe for next summer, spring time, I will redo this cast off a little bit tighter to stop the rolling and flaring out, but I'll see how I feel about that. I really wanted bracelet length, like kind of maybe here or here, just so that it's like nice and easy to wear. This yarn grew quite a lot with blocking lengthwise. Definitely the sleeves were hitting me around the length I wanted, and after blocking they're just way too long, as you can see. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I definitely think that if I were to wear it more often, I need to get rid of maybe like 10 centimeters off the sleeve. I knitted them exactly to pattern, so yeah, I'm not sure if it's the pattern or if it's the yarn. I think it is the both. I think just because the pattern sleeves hit a little bit differently than I would want them to, which is fine. I'll just need to correct this. It's definitely not a priority at the moment, just because I don't think I'll get much wear out of it in the next few months, because it's gotten a little bit too cold for it, and I've been wearing a lot of cardigans and I don't think it looks so great under the cardigan colours that I have. It's fine, I'll just sort it out in the spring, and I might do a little video of fixing my knits or something like that. Another finished object I have, which I've worn quite a lot recently, or to be fair, straight after I finished knitting them, and then I realised I should probably stop wearing them, are my kaisla socks. These are still on my provisional sock blockers. I'll take them off. I worn them for a few days around the house, and I worn them once like in shoes. They have pilled massively. I should probably talk about the yarn first and then I'll talk about that. So this is a pattern by Rachel Coopy. It's kaisla from the 52 Weeks of Socks. They knitted it in Cascade Heritage Solids in the colour Lunar Rock. It's a really pretty greyish, slightly bluish colour. They are a really wearable piece, apart from the few things I'll mention in a moment. I sized down on my needles. I think the pattern suggests 2.5mm, and I went down to 2.25, partially because I think I'd like the fabric a bit more, but also the stitch count seemed very, very large for this kind of sock. And yeah, it was about, I think maybe 10 stitches more than I normally would cast on. I thought that would kind of fix it. Also with my tight gauge, I would have kind of balanced it out, but it turns out it hasn't. They ended up way too loose. They kind of slide down off my feet, and if like I'm taking off leggings or trousers or anything, they kind of come off with them, which is quite annoying. You don't really want your socks doing that. I think if I were to reknit them, which I probably won't do, is I would take out a lace repeat out of these. I think that would be the best way to do it. Maybe size down to 2mm needles, but I don't know if this yarn will work so good with that needle size. I think that removing a chart repeat, not chart repeat, a lace repeat, so just one of these ribbing bits would probably do the job. So I really wanted to show you because I've worn them for not that long. I think it was maybe 2 days and then like 1 day in shoes, but they felted insanely and they pilled a lot. I think I've been wearing my Una socks and my chamomile socks, which are knitted in like wool nylon blends, but just like regular wool, and they've held up like beautifully. I wear them in shoes all the time, and these ones are a merino and nylon blend, and they have felted so much around the toe. This is the kind of un-depilled sock, and you can really see the felting around the toe, and the bottom edge is like very thick and dense now. And then this is the depilled sock. You can't really tell much difference because depilling these was just impossible. I think it's not the most hard wearing yarn. I'd probably only use it for like house socks, and these might just become my house socks because of that. The pattern wasn't great. It was a little bit hard to follow, and I ended up using the petal drop socks pattern created by Florence Miller, or handmade by Florence. That pattern is very clear. It explains to you like exactly what to do for top down slip stitch heel flap socks, and I kind of applied that but used the stitch count and the lace pattern for this sock, and I think it's come out much better than it would if I had followed the pattern. I knitted this a little bit shorter than I would like. I compared it to the length of another sock that I really like the length of, but I forgot the fact that it might like stretch widthwise and then it will remove the length from that, but they're not bad. I still really like them. The design really reminds me of like bamboo stems in like a bamboo forest. I'm not sure if you can see that, but I think just because of like these would be the leaves. And if you're wondering, for the leg I knitted 1.5 chart repeats. I think I'd probably go to maybe 2 chart repeats next time. Then for the leg I just knitted as long as I needed it to. I usually end my chart like leg foot knitting or halfway through my little toe, and then I just knit the wedge toe after that, and then that guarantees me pretty much the perfect fit. And I'm not sure what the pattern suggests, but I did a wedge toe because it's my favourite. It fits me the best and it's really easy to knit, and you can't really tell much of a difference when they're like on your feet especially. I think if not for my choice of yarn and not for the lace repeat situation, I think these would be an absolute staple sock in my sock drobe, but unfortunately I think they'll just end up being house socks. I had to move a little bit so I'm not blinded. Another finished object that I have are these penny gloves by Petite Knit. These are just fingerless mittens knitted in stockinette in a sport weight yarn. I made these in Drops Flora in the colour White Fog. These were the leftovers from this cardigan, and I think they've come out really beautifully. I've actually knitted a pair of these before, and in I think Drops Alpaca maybe, in like a pinkish colour, but I'm gonna give these away as a gift knit. They came out a bit too tight for me, like on my hand. When I put them on, the cast off edge is not stretchy enough, where you can see in these ones it is quite stretchy, so whenever I like go like that I can't do that because they dig into my hand. I think I've got small but wide hands, so yeah, I don't think it should be an issue for the person that I'm giving those to. For this pair I decided to cast off using Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, and that's what I initially did on here. I still did a normal just knitted cast off with a thumb because I didn't think it would change much, and it didn't. The initial Jenny's bind off that I did ended up being way too loose, and it was kind of flaring out like that, and it was also rolling a lot this edge, so I ended up to like ripping that out. I switched to 2.75mm needles, and used the Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off as well. I skipped some of the stitches and just like did a knitted bind off, but it was very random, so it is mostly a Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off. And I used the like tips and of the 2.75mm needles, and I really made sure that it's very, very tight because I wanted it stretchy but nice and tight. So as you can see, these have very minimal rolling. These are not blocked, so this is just entirely from the bind off. I think this one rolls a little bit more than this one, but I think that's because of how I stored them. I've worn these a few times now. I'm not sure if I need to block them really, because they go on my hands. I don't think it will make too much of a difference. I tried knitting them a bit shorter than the pattern suggested because I wanted them to hit me maybe like there, and they ended up being too long for my liking, but I'll still definitely wear them a lot. They're super cute. I think they're super wearable. They're really useful for like being, and the steering wheel was cold, or if I'm going out for a walk and it's not like super cold but I still want to use my hands, like want to be able to use my phone and that sort of thing. If it's a little bit chilly outside, I think fingerless mittens are perfect for that. Just perfect for English weather. They match my next finished object absolutely beautifully, as you can see. I'll insert a picture of them together. But this is a partially blocked Oslo hat, also by Petite Knit. This is just a stockinette hat. It's just a beanie. I ended up knitting the mohair edition of the Oslo hat by Petite Knit. Purely because there was just more sizes of it, so I wanted to have a bit more of a wider choice, and I think the patterns are very, very similar, so you can probably get either and get the same result. I knitted mine in sandnes garn double Sunday in the colour putty or kit, which is a really beautiful off-white kind of greyish colour, and I think it really suits my skin tone very, very well. If you want to see a comparison, it's really relatively similar to the flora. The flora I think is a bit more red, whereas this is a bit more green in terms of tone. They're still white, they're definitely not green or red, but kind of they're leaning more towards those hues. This yarn is super, super easy to spit slice. This yarn is super easy to spit splice because it felt super easily, and it is insanely soft. Like, it is the softest merino I have ever touched. It's really buttery and just smooth and really, really lovely to work with. I knitted a size adult S for this hat. At first I knitted this on the recommended needle size, which was 3mm, but I ended up frogging that hat because it came out way too tight on me. It was like just not good. I also knitted it too short because I was firstly playing yarn chicken, and two, I was worried that it would be too floppy at the top, which I think, yeah, it just ended up way too short and it was way too tight, so it was a massive mistake. And I had to frog it and reknit it anyway. This one I reknitted on 3.5mm needles, and I still followed the same stitch count, but I also followed the pattern exactly just past the brim. I think the brim is maybe a centimetre or two shorter than the pattern suggested because I wanted a slightly shorter one, and also I was a bit scared that I'd lose yarn chicken, which I ended up doing. Anyway, I knitted it way too short again, and I had to order another skein anyway. You can kind of see that there's a line where it hasn't been blocked because I finished it this morning when I was like doing uni work. I ended up meeting gauge exactly on 3.5mm needles, so I got 23 stitches per 10cm, which is the exact gauge for the Oslo hat mohair edition. I actually think it's come out perfectly this time. I think it suits me really, really well. I really, really like it. It's got a little bit of poof at the top, but not a massive amount, and I think the shape really suits me, and it will be a really nice kind of fall winter accessory. As you can see, I've got pretty much a whole ball left of this. I ended up using 114 grams in total, so I just broke into the last skein, which I'm not sure what I'll do with. I'll probably knit some other accessory. And finally, my only work in progress at the moment is this Mabel wrap by Handmade by Florence, or Florence Miller. So this is a beautiful drop shoulder wrap cardigan with double knitted edges and double knitted ties as well. I've knitted a similar pattern by Florence as well, which is the Robinson wrap cardigan, but that one is much tighter. This has a much looser fit and it's also drop shoulder, whereas the other one was a raglan. I think this is going to fit me beautifully. The fabric has also come out exactly how I wanted it. I was going to use the suggested yarn in the pattern, which was the Majo garn fine merino, and which is what I used. It's in the colour sand, and the suggested mohair was also Majo garn mohair, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be soft enough, and I also really wanted to try out the knitting for olive mohair, which is what I did, and this is in the colour limestone. I believe this is the replacement of their colour putty, but this is the old putty as far as I'm aware. And together they create this really beautiful beigey grey fabric, which kind of looks like almost silvery. The limestone is definitely white silver kind of colour, and this beige, well, this sand is a really beautiful greyish beige, and I think they look really beautiful with my skin tone, and they really work for me. This is kind of what I wanted this cardigan to be, but as you can see it's a little bit lighter, and yeah, I think it just is going to suit me a lot more. I think this is a slightly less nice shot, but I really had to move because you absolutely could not see what I was showing. This pattern features this beautiful increased line along the shoulder, and I think it's a really beautiful detail. That it's kind of like a raglan, you know, when you have that one line in the raglan, this has like 2 stitches in between the increases, and I think they look really beautiful. Obviously it's a drop shoulder, but it's literally along the shoulder line. Modify anything, I just, possibly the body actually, I just knitted until I thought I was gonna, so that this hits me around my kind of jeans line. I sort of used my step-by-step cardigan as a reference because I really like the length of that one, and I really wanted this one to be the exact same length. The only thing I wanted to say is that the fabric is just absolutely amazing. I really love it. It is beautiful. The colour is just perfect, and the knitting for olive merino is such a game changer. The Drops Kid silk mohair is soft, but you can kind of feel the scratchiness, and it's not like entirely soft. It's got that bit of like a sharpness to it, whereas this one is just, I keep wanting to touch this fabric, and I really want to work on this even though it's just a stockinette, because the fabric is just amazing and I really want to keep picking it up. So yeah, I'm very happy with my fabric choice for this one. Yarn acquisitions. I got this double Sunday by Sandnes Garn in the colour ballerina shoes or ballet shoes. This is a collaboration colour with Petite Knit. I just wanted the same yarn for a hat that I used for my Oslo hat, but I wanted a pink colour. This isn't for me, this is going to be a gift knit. I don't think it's going to be an Oslo hat, but yeah, I just wanted to knit a pink gift knit for my boyfriend's grandma. I also ended up getting Knitting for Olive Merino in the colour Dusty Moose, because Candid Knit, who's also my friend, she's knitted a camisole number something, I don't know, just a plain tank top in this colour, and I thought it looked absolutely beautiful, and I really wanted to knit one as well, and I thought maybe before the winter and fall comes I might have enough time, but this yarn took quite a while to arrive, so yeah, I don't think I'll end up knitting it before the fall ends, so it'll probably be my first next summer knit. I think it will suit me. It's a really nice grey brown colour. It's quite dark, but it's really pretty, I think, and I'm really excited to make something with this. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next ones. Bye!